Yeah, different type of game. You know, it's a different type of team, different style of play. So more physical game, a hectic game. Something to be expected in these summer league games. Highly competitive though, so I think we got a lot out of it. That's what I'm happy with. I'm happy how we responded at times with the physicality of the game, because that's part of our style of play as well. Only thing I'm really disappointed in is kind of our effort on the glass, and I think that's what caused us the loss. But great experience for the guys.
This is Dorp Reed, and you're listening to The Briefcase with Casey Holdahl.
Greetings, Blazer fans, and welcome to The Briefcase, presented by Spirit Mountain Casino. Episode 162 of The Briefcase, presented by Spirit Mountain Casino, the second NBA 2025 Las Vegas Summer League edition of The Briefcase. I am Casey Holdahl, and the Portland Trail Blazers, undefeated no more in Las Vegas, losing the second night of a back-to-back versus the Memphis Grizzlies Saturday night at Thomas & Mack Arena. Hansen, on the other hand, did get a poster in that game, even though the Trailblazers didn't get the win. We'll check in and see how Young's been doing in his first couple days with the Trailblazers, his first couple games, I should say, with the Trailblazers. Portland hires another assistant, another former player, James Posey, joining Chauncey Billups' staff. And we'll hear from Caleb Love discussing joining the Trailblazers and his thoughts as he embarked on his first summer league on this edition of The Briefcase, presented by Spirit Mountain Casino. Well, after starting out their 2025 Summer League with a blowout victory versus the Warriors, the Trailblazers followed that up on the second night of a back-to-back with a 96-86 loss to the Memphis Grizzlies Saturday night at Thomas & Mack Arena. Playing a back-to-back in Summer League is going to be tough. Obviously, you have a lot of players who've never really played back-to-backs before. You've got a lot of players who've only been together for about a week. A lot of these guys went through the pre-draft process, then had some downtime, then getting back into games. So, you know, the kind of the fitness you need to play a back-to-back, particularly a back-to-back at Summer League, where the pace of play is super fast, always going to be a little bit difficult. And I think we saw that with the Trailblazers Saturday night. They led for most of the first three quarters. Into the third quarter and then into the fourth quarter, you could kind of see that it seemed like fatigue was starting to affect the team. And I think, you know, one, rebounding was an issue all night long. They got out-rebounded, I think, 52-32. And that's, you know, rebounding is one of those things where it's like, that's your legs. And, you know, if you don't have your legs about you, and if you're not quick off the floor, first to the ball, you're going to get out-rebounded significantly by teams who are a bit more energetic. And I feel like that's what we saw out of the Grizzlies on Saturday night. Trailblazers just didn't, again, on the boards all night long, even when they were still scoring more, just not able to kind of do the things they need to do on the boards to put themselves in a position to win that game. They, as I mentioned, to lose the rebounding battle 52-32. They were outscored in the second half 56-41, as I mentioned, after leading for much of the first three quarters. And I think the Grizzlies went on like a 10-0 run, and that was when I believe Caleb Love and Young Hansen were out of the game. They bring him back in, able to get a little bit closer, and then the Grizzlies push it back up again, end up winning that game by 10. And that was one of those two where, it just seemed like, you know, in the second game of a back-to-back, you know, in their first, after a very exciting first Summer League experience in that win versus the Warriors, I think I wouldn't say an emotional win because it's Summer League, but just an enthusiastic win, a lot of excitement in the building, a lot of excitement on the team about kind of the way the team played, particularly the way that Hansen played, that, you know, you bounce back the next day in a late game again and just don't have necessarily the same energy that you need to have to beat a team like the Grizzlies. They have quite a few players on their team who have already seen minutes with the Grizzlies. Jalen Wells being kind of the most obvious one. Another thing, too, I mentioned the times. Everything is running super late at Summer League this year. Our first game was an 8 o'clock start time, or scheduled 8 o'clock start time. I don't think it started until 8:20. And then the Saturday night game, even worse, 7:30 start time. That game didn't even get going, I think, until 8:20. So well over 40 minutes past when that game was supposed to start, which, you know, it's not the reason the Blazers lost. But again, when you're playing on the second night of a back-to-back, you know, that don't help. And that's one of the things what I think is happening too, is that, you know, since point differential is so important in terms of the standings for the Summer League tournament, that teams in previous years, when there wasn't a tournament, you know, once the game kind of gets out of hand, or not even out of hand, but when you're down, you know, 7-8 points with a minute to play, you know, usually if point differential didn't matter, you'd probably just let that game ride out. Now teams are fouling, teams are trying to score, you know, in the last minute of the game. So it's making things run really slow at the end of games, which NBA games already run a little bit too slow at the end of games, anyways, especially close games. So to have that happen at Summer League, I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing. I think the Summer League tournament is fun, but I think that having teams fouling in the last minute of the fourth quarter in a 15-point game in order to try to get it to a 10-point game to improve their point differential, probably not what you want from an entertainment standpoint for something like the Las Vegas Summer League. So maybe a maybe some changes still to be made in terms of how they approach that because things are just running way too late. And maybe I'm just noticing more because we've been playing the late games. The late games in Las Vegas are about midday in China, which is kind of our assumption as to why we got three of our four games are late games, is because we assumed they wanted to get those games on in China, which makes perfect sense. Shout out to all the folks in China that have been watching. Great response so far from that. So while that's great, it also makes for a little bit later nights here in Las Vegas. Las Vegas is a late night town, so you don't mind it too awful much. But again, I just wish things ran a little bit more on time, and I know the team and the players do as well. So the Blazers do end up falling to that one to go to 1-1 for Summer League so far, with at least three more games to play. Let's go ahead and just get to some of the numbers here from that game. Sidy Cissoko having his best game thus far of Summer League. 20 points on 7 of 14 shooting from the field, 3 of 6 from 3, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 steals, and a block in 26 minutes. 18 points, 1 rebound, 1 assist, 1 block for Caleb Love in 29 minutes. 15 points, 4 assists, 2 rebounds, 2 steals for James Bouknight, who I feel like has played really well so far at Summer League. He's a guy who, he was on the remix last year and has looked really good. I feel like so far in the first 2 games at Summer League. And then you got Young Hansen, had another really nice performance. Not necessarily as many highlight plays this time. Last time it was highlight passes. This time it was dunks. A very nice game for Hansen once again. 10 points on 4 of 8 shooting from the field. No three-pointers this time, but he did grab 5 rebounds, hand out 3 assists, had a block. Rebounding was something that Hansen had mentioned that he wished he had done a better job of. I thought Hansen was really honest too about kind of some of the difficulties he was encountering in terms of the fitness level that he needed to play at Summer League. I just felt like he was frustrated too, just that they lost, and that's you love to see that from young players, especially. I mean, on one hand, you don't want them to get too frustrated about the things that happen at Summer League, but on the other hand, you want guys who want to win and get mad when they don't win, and I could tell in that post game with Hansen that he was mad that they had lost that game and he felt like he should have played better. I thought he played great nonetheless, but you want a guy who's going to hold himself to a high standard, and that's so far in my interactions with Hansen, that would be exactly what I would say, is that he really holds himself to a standard to where he's not necessarily satisfied that he just put up some decent numbers and had some decent stats and some decent highlights. Like he wants to win those games, and it's one of those things where it's like, it's kind of a cliche, but if he could have scored 2 points and they would have won, I think he would have been much happier than scoring 10 points and getting a couple really nice dunks and losing that game. So, another opportunity for the Trailblazers. Again, just a different kind of game. The first game versus the Warriors, much more of an up and down game. This game versus the Grizzlies, a little more of a grinded out. You could tell they're trying to be more physical with Hansen. Didn't really work, but definitely trying to make him work a little bit more. I think after seeing what he was able to do with back cuts in the first game, I'm guessing that the Grizzlies, when they were going through the tape and doing their team meetings and their team walkthroughs, are probably like, hey, you need to have your head on a swivel here. Do not get back cut because you are going to end up on a highlight. So they did a much better job dealing with that, the Grizzlies, than the Warriors did. Nevertheless, still some highlights in that game as well, particularly for Young, getting his first poster dunk of the 2025 Las Vegas Summer League, an absolute throwdown. That was something that the Trailblazers coaching staff had asked out of Hansen, was that they wanted to see him, maybe dunk the ball a little bit more. And Ronnie Barella talked about, he's got great touch at the rim, but sometimes, you just want to go ahead and jam the thing. And that's what Hansen did on multiple occasions in the game in Saturday night. So that was great to see. Obviously the reaction has been crazy, and, people just really, really loving what they're seeing out of Hansen. And like I said, in that first game, you get kind of some of the flashy passes that we've heard about. And then the second game, you get kind of more of the power game, his ability to drive to the rim. Again, his ability to use his body and his handle to back guys down and to get into the paint. We saw him get a few more paint touches in the second game versus the Grizzlies than he had in the first game versus the Warriors. I think that's a really good sign. And once again, something that I Obviously I did not have a whole lot of knowledge about Hansen before he came to Portland, and I've tried to get caught up like everyone else has, and figuring out kind of the way that he plays and how he conducts himself on the court. But even then, like I kind of assumed that like the handle piece, even in a place like Summer League, would be a work in progress. And it obviously is a work in progress, but it's a lot further along than I would have expected it to be, which I think is a really good sign for this team. So a lot of good things to take from that game. It was unfortunate they couldn't get the win. But it is Summer League too. So it's really more about improvement and figuring out some of the things you need to get better at than it is about the win-loss record, though everyone does want to win that Summer League championship. So the win-loss record now matters a whole lot more than it did before the Summer League tournament was put into effect, I think in 2024. No, 2014. And on the topic of these Summer League standings, as of this recording, as of right now, it's probably changed, or it's almost certainly changed when you're watching this, but as of right now, Sunday afternoon, Trailblazers are 12th in the Las Vegas Summer League standings. They're currently the top rated team with a 1-1 record due to point differential, which is 11.5. The next closest point differential for a 1-1 team right now is the Lakers, who are at 5.5. So the Blazers looking pretty good right now amongst the teams that have already lost a game. I think there are 6 teams that are 2-0, and I think another 6 teams that have yet to play a second game. So we'll have a little bit of a better sense after the games on Sunday and Monday, obviously, what the Blazers will need to do on Tuesday in order to maybe put themselves in a position to get to that Summer League tournament. The way it works is the top 4 teams advance to the tournament, play a semifinal and a final. The winner of the final obviously ends up as the Las Vegas Summer League champion. The way it works as well with tiebreakers, I mean, you have 30 teams who are playing 4 games, so there are going to be a ton of ties. And the tiebreaker for 1-to-1 ties is head to head, obviously. But it's almost impossible for there to just be 2 teams that are tied, at least for the teams that are not undefeated. So more likely you have to go to the multi-team tiebreaker, and the multi-team tiebreaker, the first multi-team tiebreaker, is point differential. And the Blazers beating the Warriors by a significant margin put them in a good place in terms of having a good point differential. So they beat the Warriors by what, like 29, 28 points. I can't even remember exactly. Lose to the Grizzlies by 10. So now their point differential is 11.5, which must mean actually that they beat the Grizzlies by 20 something points. And so they are in a good position if they're able to win their next game versus the Pelicans. And then obviously they would need to win another game. If you lose 2 games at Summer League, you are not going to qualify for the tournament. So if the Blazers drop one more game, at that point in time, you will know that they'll play one more game in the consolation bracket, and that will be it. But if they are able to win their next game, they do put themselves in a position, depending on kind of what happens around them, to potentially move on, or at least have a chance to move on, to not be eliminated going into their 4th game, especially with a really good point differential. So we'll have to see how that plays out. Trailblazers' next game is Tuesday, 7 o'clock versus the Pelicans, a team that's 0-2. So you figure Portland's chances are pretty good in that one, though obviously it's going to depend on who is playing for both teams as Summer League goes on, and as I think people who have paid attention to Summer League before know. Once Summer League goes on, guys, sometimes if they get even minor injuries, if it becomes very clear that, they're not going to make the Summer League tournament, a lot of teams end up playing in multiple Summer Leagues anyways, so they don't necessarily want to have guys play every single game in Las Vegas if they're playing the California Classic or in the Salt Lake City version. So it's always a little bit of a toss-up who is going to be available for games. I'm imagining that the Blazers will probably play their 3rd game straight up. If everyone is healthy, I imagine everyone is going to play. And then in that 4th game, that's when it becomes a little more of if they're still in the hunt for the tournament, I imagine they'll probably play it straight up again with guys who are healthy. If not, then at that point in time, maybe they turn it over to some of the guys that haven't got to play as much, because that's another part too about Summer League is that you can't necessarily play every guy who's on the team. You can't have a 13-man rotation at Summer League. And so usually, you want to get the guys who haven't necessarily got to play a whole lot at the beginning of Summer League. You want to get them some minutes at the end of Summer League if there's really nothing to play for at that point, because, they're putting in work, they're practicing, they're working hard. Guys take roster spots in order to get in front of NBA execs, and not even NBA execs, but just basketball execs internationally, in hopes of getting training camp invites or 2-way contracts or straight up NBA contracts or even international contracts. And so the reason why teams do that is, if a guy has been working hard, he's been practicing, doesn't get a whole lot of opportunities to play in the first couple games. You want to get that guy out there so he's able to get in front of some of the people that he's hoping to get in front of to again grab that player, show what they can do, maybe get a contract from a team, if not from the Blazers and from another team. So we'll have to wait to see how that ends up shaking out. But as of right now, the Trailblazers still with a pretty good chance of making the tournament. When you lose a game, it obviously hurts your chances. I mean, duh. I mean, I don't think I'm really saying anything especially smart there. Always possible too that there will just be undefeated teams. I think last summer league, I think two of the four teams were undefeated that went on to the finals. Um, and again, I'd have to do a more detailed breakdown to see if there's any of the current undefeated teams that are playing each other, because at that point in time, that one of those teams is not going to end up undefeated. But that's something that's probably better figured out once we've played three games. So on the next edition of the briefcase, we'll probably have another update to talk about where the Trailblazers are at in the standings. But as I mentioned, their next game, Tuesday versus the Pelicans, 7 o'clock on KUNP, Blazer Vision, and ESPN. That one's at Cox Pavilion. The first two games have been at Thompson Mack. Cox Pavilion, the much smaller gym on the campus of UNLV. So a little bit more of an intimate setting, and should be fun too. Obviously, a lot of fans have been coming out. And I think, the weekend is usually when the most fans come out. Shout out to all the Blazer fans. Shout out to all the international fans. Shout out to all the Hansen fans who have been coming out to games. Great fan support here so far in Las Vegas. Always great to see. And hopefully they'll be able to see maybe an extended run for the Trailblazers, depending on what happens around them in terms of the Summer League standings. And if they're able to win their next game, which once again is Tuesday, 7 o'clock versus the winless Pelicans, KUNP, Blazer Vision, ESPN as well. One of the traditions in the NBA is when you play a back-to-back, the day after the back-to-back is an off day. Sometimes guys will come in and get treatment or maybe get their own little private workouts, but typically, you know, there's never practices after a second night of a back-to-back. Everyone gets a chance to rest. And when you play two games back-to-back, like you need that time to rest. And when you're here in Las Vegas, there's obviously plenty to do, tons of sights to see, and opportunities to do all kinds of interesting stuff in the desert. I'm sure some guys will maybe go out and play some golf, or maybe got out to play some golf this morning. It gets pretty hot to play golf here in Las Vegas. I don't know that I can necessarily go on the links and manage to play in 105-degree temperatures. But what I could do is enjoy the swing suite at Spirit Mountain Casino, where you will get an unforgettable experience at the Top Golf Swing Suite. You can enjoy virtual games on an immersive big screen, now with discounted midweek rates. Grab your 5 friends and book your bay now at the Spirit Mountain Casino Top Golf Swing Suite. Spirit Mountain Casino, Highway 18 in Grand Ronde. Elevate your game. Well, after Chauncey Billups got a contract extension, they've continued to fill out his new staff, and they've really added a bunch of really interesting up-and-coming young coaches, guys who have playing experience, guys who've been in the league for a long time, guys who have a lot of experience working with players who are currently in the NBA. Blazers add another really interesting assistant coach to the roster as well by hiring James Posey. Go ahead and do some press release reading here. Posey brings 25 years of experience as a player and coach to the Trailblazers, as he is a two-time NBA champion as a player. He won in 2006 and 2008, and when he won as assistant coach in 2016. Posey arrives in Portland after spending the 2024-25 season in Phoenix, and with 2 seasons prior as an assistant coach with the Washington Wizards. Posey was an assistant coach with the Cleveland Cavaliers from 2014 to 2019, contributing to 4 straight NBA Finals appearances from 2015 to 2018, including an NBA title in 2016. Posey also served as an assistant coach with the University of Virginia women's basketball team in 2021-22 under current Trailblazers scout Tina Thompson. I think that's pretty cool. And began his coaching career with the NBA G League Canton Charge in 2013. As a player, the Xavier University graduate appeared in 864 games with the Denver Nuggets, where he was teammates with Billups during the 1999-2000 season, the Houston Rockets, the Memphis Grizzlies, the Miami Heat, the Boston Celtics, New Orleans Hornets, the Indiana Pacers, while winning an NBA title with the Warriors in 2016 and with Boston in 2006 and 2008. I always remember James Posey as a Celtic in 2008. I think Miami would probably be where I secondly associated with him with. So it makes sense that that's where he won his championships at in 2016 with the Heat, and in 2006 with the Heat, in 2008 with the Boston Celtics. So Posey joins the staff. He is here in Las Vegas with the rest of the Trailblazers coaching staff. He joins Tiago Splitter, Patrick St. James, Quentin Crawford as new assistants on Chauncey Billups' staff. Nate Bjorkgren, a holdover from last year's staff as well. And again, just a really kind of making the effort and putting in the investment to bring in a all new kind of coaching roster for this team. And I think it really goes to show that it feels like that was something that they felt like they wanted to address this offseason. I think there's been a lot of talk about kind of the style of play and the way they want to play, and so now you have three guys on your coaching staff: Chauncey Billups, Tiago Splitter, and James Posey, all former players, all really kind of well-known defensive-minded players who had success in the league. All three of those guys won NBA championships at some point in time, and in various roles as well. You had Chauncey with the Pistons as their starting point guard. You had Tiago with the Spurs, and then you have James Posey as a super sub off the bench for the Heat and the Celtics. So you got guys on your roster who know what it takes to win, who know what it takes to fill various roles in the NBA, and I think have a lot of experience as well. I mean, you just ran it down there. Obviously, James Posey, a lot of assistant coaching experience. Tiago Splitters had a lot of experience with various organizations, both internationally and domestically. And Patrick St. James coming from a very good Grizzlies squad. And if I'm not mistaken, Quentin won a championship with in the G League. So, you've got guys who have had success wherever they've been in their previous stops, joining the Trailblazers now, with Chauncey under a new contract. So, I think that really goes to show that the team is investing in their coaching staff and wanting to make sure that, they're really installing a culture and a system that is going to be sustainable long term and a style of play as well. And I think that's kind of my biggest takeaway about the coaches they brought in is that they're bringing in coaches that really reflect the way that they want to play. And, that's a really good thing. And last but not least, let's go ahead and hear from Caleb Love. Talked to Caleb prior to the Blazers' first game here at the Las Vegas Summer League. They had a practice on Thursday. So I talked to Caleb on Thursday prior to that first game, just about his history, kind of coming up in Missouri, when he kind of figured out or when he started taking basketball seriously, when it felt like it could really be something that, could be a profession for him going forward. His college career, obviously a very accomplished player at UNC, came very close to winning a championship, fell just short. Spent 3 years at UNC, then goes to play 2 seasons at Arizona, obviously 2 top flight organizations there. And then just his decision to join the Trailblazers. I assume that a guy like Caleb Love, a prolific scorer in the NCAA ranks, probably had some options in terms of where he was going to sign a contract at, or at least a 2-way contract. And so we talked to him about why he decided to come to Portland and maybe just kind of what he's hoping to do in Las Vegas as a Summer League Trailblazer. So here's Caleb Love prior to the Trailblazers' first game at Summer League a few days ago. Take it away, Caleb. All right, we're here with Caleb Love. Caleb, first off, how's your experience been so far since joining the Trailblazers and having these Summer League practices?
It's been a blessing. Everything that I imagine as far as, just being in an NBA facility, being around, like-minded people that, all had the same goal, and that's to win. So I just been blessed to be here, and I'm enjoying every moment of it.
Absolutely. Wanting to kind of get to know you a little bit, what was it like growing up as Caleb Love?
It was great. I mean, my dad coached me growing up, and, he kind of put me in different, environments so I can, learn and grow as a player. But, my parents, they put me in a lot of situations to where I had to learn and grow as a person as well. So I thank them for that, and it kind of shaped me into the person that I am and the player that I am. And so I took those experiences and, kind of applied them to my life. And now that, I'm, 23 years old now, I say that, they did a good job.
Absolutely. When did you start getting serious about basketball? When did basketball really feel like it was something that I'm really gonna devote myself to this?
Right around middle school, towards my freshman year, I felt like I could be something and I could be great at this game, and I always put the work in, but you started to believe, and once I was going against top guys in the country, and I was actually competing and actually kind of making a name for myself. I think that's something that I took, and I'm like, okay, I can do something with this.
Absolutely. How would you describe your college career? How would you sum up your college career? Obviously, a very successful career.
Yeah, it was a journey, man. I think, a lot of ups and downs, but, everything in between. I wouldn't trade my journey for anything. The experiences that I've, been through and, experience in my college career, I think, also shaped me into the person and prepared me for the next level, which is the NBA. And so, I think my college career was definitely, a lot of great moments, a lot of, big time shots, big time, games, big time, I say, it was a whirlwind.
Yeah.
It was a whirlwind. And I'm blessed that, I got to experience it both at North Carolina and Arizona. I got 2 great experiences there. And so, I think definitely my college experiences was great.
Yeah. What was your pre-draft process like for you?
Yeah, so I had 12 workouts, traveling across the country. But, I think every single day I was working. I was putting the work in, a lot of conditioning, a lot of threes. I think just working on my overall game and then my mental space, making sure I'm in the right mental space. Going around and, traveling across the country, it's not easy. But, it prepares you for the league because, it's 82 games in a season. So I think, my pre-draft process was great, though, for sure. I enjoyed it.
What was maybe some of the feedback you got from teams?
Some of the feedback from teams that I got was mainly just, be efficient. You got to be a defensive menace on the defensive end. And, after, continuing to, make or take those great tough shots, but you got to be able to be efficient. You got to be able to be efficient. You got to be able to find your niche, be a leader on the court because you're a lead guard and things like that. So I think just kind of those 3 things, and I just build on that.
I assume you probably had some options. Why did you decide to sign with the Trailblazers?
I just felt like it was a great fit. Obviously. Coach Chauncey Billups, him being as great of a player as what he was, I think it was just him being a point guard. I can learn from him. The team is young, and we kind of building something, and so I was intrigued by it for sure. You being a Portland Trailblazer, Dame was my favorite player, so I was kind of already a Trailblazers fan. So just watching them and seeing how Dame was became the player he was, and it started in Portland. So I was definitely intrigued by that.
Awesome. Last one. Just what are your hopes for both yourself and for the team here at Summer League?
Win. That's the main goal is to win, and obviously I want to play great, but I want to lead teams this team to win. So whatever that takes, whether that's getting us into offense or picking up full court, doing those things, but being efficient for sure.
Awesome, Caleb. Thank you so much.
Sure. Thank you.
Great stuff there from Caleb. Really enjoyed getting to know Caleb Love a bit. I think absolutely he's going to be a player in this league. Obviously, he's going to have a chance to spend quite a bit of time with the Trailblazers this season as a two-way guy. Obviously, I imagine he'll probably spend some time with the Remix as well. But generally, Portland's two-way players have generally spent the majority of their time with the main roster. And, there are obviously a lot of guards on this team. You obviously have Drew Holiday and Scoot Henderson. But in terms of kind of like, that third point guard, I think that's a little bit up for grabs. I think, Delano Banton filled that role very well. I'm not suspecting that Delano's going to come back. The Trailblazers do have 13 players on the roster right now, so they do need to sign one more player, but I don't necessarily get the sense that it's going to be a returner. So I think Caleb Love is going to have a whole lot of opportunity to come in and show what he can do and maybe earn a spot on this team going forward. So a really nice young man, obviously, spent 5 years in college, so he's a little bit older, a little more mature. And, particularly for a young Blazers team that is still very young, having some guys who have a little more experience and again, who are accomplished at the NCAA level. I think we're seeing more and more in this current NBA that, teams are a little more willing to go with players who spend a little more time in college just because, with the way that the CBA works now, you need to have kind of those role player guys on contracts that are, reasonable. And so one of the ways to do that is to maybe bring in guys who maybe, not necessarily getting drafted because of upside or because of this, that, or the other, guys who just spend a little more time in college and who come into the league maybe a little more formed and maybe, maybe don't have necessarily, again, the upside that maybe some of the other guys might have, but who are going to be able to come in and fill a role on your team without having to play for a couple seasons to kind of get up to speed with what you're doing. So a guy like Caleb Love, I think, fills that role, and someone who has played really well here at Summer League so far. He is averaging, I wrote this down somewhere, 18 points, 3.5 rebounds, 1.5 assists in 26.4 minutes per game. He has been starting alongside James Bouknight, Rayon Rupert, Sidi Sissoko, and obviously young Hansen, and has done a really good job doing it. So I've really gotten to enjoy getting to know Caleb a little bit, and have enjoyed watching him play as well. And that'll do it for the briefcase. Thank you so much for joining me, as always. Back with more editions as the Summer League rolls on. Most likely another edition after the game on Tuesday versus the Pelicans, because at that point in time, we'll have a bit of an update about what Portland's chances are in terms of making the Summer League tournament. Trailblazers, 2 times winners of the Las Vegas Summer League Championship. It would be nice for them to have a chance to get a third. Thank you so much for joining me. As always, please like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. If you're here in Las Vegas, stop by, say hello. I've already talked to a few fans. I always appreciate when people reach out. That's one of the points of coming to the Las Vegas Summer League, a chance to kind of see some people in a little more informal environment, and it's always a good time. I hope people are enjoying it. I know I've always enjoyed coming out here myself. Thank you so much for joining me. As always, we will talk to you soon. Go Blazers.